I met Bakit last month outside a camp for displaced people in eastern Chad, near the border of Darfur. Bakit is just one casualty of Bashir's brutal tactics. When Bashir financed and armed a force of Chadian rebels to overthrow Chad's government, some of the fighting took place near Bakit's hut. He and a few friends found a live grenade and started playing with it. It exploded, taking Bakit's hands, one eye, and half of his face.
That was the New York Times opinion columnist Nicholas Kristof, then a foreign correspondent, shining a light on the genocide taking place in Darfur back in 2009. His reporting on those atrocities would earn Kristof a second Pulitzer Prize for, quote, giving voice to the voiceless in other parts of the world. And Nick joins us now. He's the author of the new memoir out today titled Chasing Hope, A Reporter's Life. And Nick, in an essay adapted from your new memoir, you make the case for hope, and you write in part this. What I've learned from 4 decades of covering misery is hope, but the reasons for hope and the need for hope. I emerged from years on the front lines awed by material and moral progress. When I step back, what I see over the arc of my career is a backdrop of progress in America and abroad that's rarely acknowledged, and that should give us perspective and inspire us to take on the many challenges that still confront us. Some people see my career covering massacres and oppression and assume that I must be a dour and infused with misery, a journalistic Eeyore. Not so. Journalism is an act of hope. You know, Nick, we often talk here about how covering the news every day can bring us down and make us forget that America has the strongest economy in the world, that our soft and hard power is stronger than ever before relative to the rest of the world, that even tackling greenhouse gases over the past decade or so, we've made progress, and worldwide poverty levels continuing to plummet, all the things that you're talking about. But when you see the news of the day, it's hard to not see what the misery that's right in front of you, and instead seeing, forgive me for using what has now become a bit passé to use, but the moral arc over the past 50, 60 years being quite remarkable, from civil rights to poverty to democracy across the globe.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the problems is that we in journalism, we cover planes that crash, not planes that land. And so one can get the impression watching the news that all planes are always crashing. And of course, you know, that's not the case. And we understand that with aviation, but I don't know that we understand that in terms of, you know, the world as a whole. And I'm afraid that that tends to create this sense of despair that is paralyzing. And, you know, Desmond Tutu was somebody I hugely admired and worked on in Darfur, and he always spoke about hope as being one of the factors that enabled them to overcome apartheid, brutal homophobia, xenophobia in South Africa. I'm with him on that.
So you've covered, as we just showed, you've covered genocide, you've covered civil wars, you've covered apartheid as well. When you approach those stories, when you put your pack on and you fly in, what is your approach? What is your mindset? Is it just observe and record and report back, or how much of yourself and your emotion do you bring to those?
You know, I'm a little ashamed that when I go into a village and, you know, people have been killed or injured, I really have an emotional armor. And it's probably like an ER physician. You know, you just want to get the facts. You're in danger. You're putting your interpreter, your driver in danger. You just want to get what you can and go out. But sometimes there are chinks in your armor, and children, for me, is one of them. Yeah. You find a kid who's been shot or raped or whatever it may be and tells their story. And that is, you know, that is hard to deal with.
But you still managed to find hope, not just in other parts of the world, but even in America. So I was glad to see, I know that Joe is a big believer in this too, that you believe in American supremacy still, that you think that there were other times, even if Trump wins, you write that you believe that America has sort of like a broader foundation, that we're going to be okay. There's times where we were doubted before the Civil War, that Europe was going to dominate America, China's going to take over as the strongest economy. That hasn't happened. What do you think it is about America that makes you hopeful?
Yeah, I mean, look, I should acknowledge, I mean, I think Trump would be a huge challenge to this country and to democracy, and I think we face enormous challenges of all kinds. But that said, there is this underlying economic dynamism in the country. There is an inventiveness, and you see that vis-a-vis Europe, for example. You see that vis-a-vis China. You know, everybody thought that China was going to overtake the U.S. as the world's biggest economy. Now that is no longer true. And Trump may damage Europe and Asia more than he damages the U.S. even, paradoxically leaving the U.S. in a strangely better position.
So, Nick, as discussed, I mean, you have faced some real horrors, but you've also met some people, some characters who have given you hope. Tell us about a couple of them.
So, you know, one of the while I'm liberal, I'm always, I think, a little more fond of some religious evangelicals and others, and that's partly because of the people I meet out in the field. And, you know, one person who left a deep impression that I write about is a nun in northern Uganda. There was this girls' school that was attacked by the Lord's Resistance Army and, you know, brutal militia that was killing and raping. They were kidnapped. The girls were kidnapped, taken off in the bush. The Ugandan army and police refused to go after them and try to recover the girls. They were just terrified of the Lord's Resistance Army. This nun, Rochelle Facera, goes after them single-handedly, armed with just a rosary. After 2 days, catches up with the warlord, negotiates with her to get back, I think, 109 of the girls. And just that, you know, sense of raw courage. I'm able to come back sometimes from places like Congo or Sudan feeling better about humanity because side by side with the worst, true evil, you just see the very best, the human capacity for strength, resilience, courage, and decency.
So let's talk about the future of journalism, and I want to see if there's any hope there. You talked about covering the plane crashes, not the plane landings. Viral anecdotes have become a moneymaker. And the business model of journalism has shifted. Local ranks of journalism have been decimated over the last decade. We do not have eyes on government at many levels at this point in journalism. What do you feel about the future of journalism, and are you as worried as I am about its ability to continue to be a truth teller?
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right to focus on local journalism around the country. The business model for that has just collapsed, and there are more and more, you know, counties around the country that just don't have any watchdog, no accountability, and they're often one-party places, so there's no opposing party to provide that watchdog function. I think at the national level, we're in somewhat better shape, but the business model there is also under threat, and AI, I think, presents a particular threat to everybody's business model. You know, what the new business model will be, I don't know. I think that philanthropy may be a part of that. We're seeing a little bit of that. And I also fundamentally, maybe this is chasing hope, I just think that news has value and that we will figure out some ways to compensate those who provide it because it is of intrinsic value.
Nick writes, journalism is an act of hope. We do all this because we believe better outcomes are possible if we just get people to understand more clearly what is going on, something you've been doing for, 40 years or so at the New York Times. The new book is titled Chasing Hope, A Reporter's Life. New York Times opinion columnist and reporter Nicholas Kristof. Nick, great to see you. Congrats on the book.
Thank you so much.